Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. I always feel like I say it's been a minute since we've been on here, and it's been like that the last couple of weeks or so, but we're back. I'm Chase Johnstone alongside Brady King. College is a lot. I'm in college trying to graduate. 37 days from now, we'll be graduating. And then Brady on the other end trying to work for that degree from a year and a half from now. So we're just college students that are enjoying time, talking about college football. Brady, what's going on in your world in Columbus?
Oh, man, you pretty much said it, honestly. Similar things, like you said, just kind of working on school while also paying more attention than I should be to college football, in particular Ohio State football. Stuff like that, and just getting through it like I can, and, excited for this season to get to the crunch time of the season, get to late November, December, stuff like that. But also, not wishing away the season. So,
yeah, it's a win-lose situation in that regard. But again, I mean, as Ohio State fans, there's a lot to look forward to, and we'll talk about them in a moment. But again, I mean, right now, college football is my main focus, considering the Bengals, who are 2 blocks away from my apartment, can't stop anything. But
we're literally like the same. Like, you're the same distance away from the what's it called now?
Paycor Stadium. Yeah,
Paycor Stadium as I am from the shoe.
It's weird.
It's literally weird. Like 2 blocks away.
It's like two. It's 2 dreams of ours that were like, oh yeah, I'm 2 blocks from my like main team stadium. I love Ohio State, but then obviously for you, your main team's Ohio State, and it's right. It's so weird how that works, but again, it's just funny how things turn out and how the Lord does that. But so the college football playoff rankings, the first edition of them came out last night on Tuesday, and Ohio State was still rated as the number 1 team in the country, followed by Indiana at 2, Texas A&M at 3, Alabama at 4, Georgia at 5, and Ole Miss at 6. So you have 2 Big Ten teams, followed by 4 SEC teams: BYU 7, Texas Tech 8, Oregon 9, Notre Dame 10. And then technically, with how things would work, Texas and Oklahoma are the first 2 teams out, Virginia being the highest rated ACC team, and then the group of 5 team being Memphis. So what were the thoughts when you first saw the rankings, when you saw what the bracket looked like, and just like what were the initial reactions on that?
Yeah, I thought it was better than the AP. I think the AP was pretty flawed in some spots, like some certain obvious rankings that weren't the way they should be. Like Texas obviously should have been ranked ahead of Oklahoma. They have the same amount of losses. Texas won head-to-head against Oklahoma and has that win over another top 10 win, at the time of the ranking over Vanderbilt, and also arguably better losses. Than Oklahoma. So that was an obvious one for them to be ranked ahead. And then another one is USC being ahead of Michigan. They, for some reason, were behind Michigan in the AP poll as of recent, while they beat them handily. So those couple rankings made sense. And overall, I thought they got it right in a lot of spots. I didn't have too much of a problem with it. There's a couple teams I think are ranked too high, but at the same time, I see why in those spots, because obviously their task is to choose the best teams, but there's times where some of that is based off resume. You have to take resume into a point. I was hoping they'd do the thing where they put Ohio State at 2 or 3 just to add a little fuel to the fire. I'd never like to be the number 1 initially, but also it's a testament to I do think it was deserved, so it's not like I'm going to complain about them ranking us at number 1, but But yeah, I mean, I see some Indiana guys mad on Twitter, Texas A&M people mad. Hopefully they stay mad the rest of the season.
Yeah, and then I mean something's going right at that rate if they're staying mad at that. But again, I mean, you look at the SEC as a whole. You've got 3 through 6 are all SEC schools, and then 11 through 12, Texas and Oklahoma. Those would technically be the 2 teams that are the first ones out of it. Oklahoma got John Mateer back after a thumb injury a couple weeks ago. Hasn't looked the greatest. Oklahoma did get that win over Tennessee, which pretty much ended Tennessee's hopes for any sort of a playoff push at all. Oklahoma still staying alive. But I think the big question right now is Texas. Texas at 11. with this team, Arch Manning, they've won a lot of games narrowly as of recent. The committee has really given them a great pedestal up. How do you feel about them being at 11, being the first team out? And how much improvement have you truly seen from Texas compared to the talent that they have on this roster? Is this something they should be doing compared to exceeding expectations?
Yeah, I think there are some things that have gotten better as the season went on. The main game I point to, or the main couple games I point to, offensive struggles wise for Texas, because they obviously have a good defense, except for the Mississippi State game. That was so weird. I don't know how they got torched so badly, but they ended up sneaking that one out. But the main two games I look at are the Ohio State game and the Florida game, and because they looked good against Vanderbilt on offense, they looked good against Mississippi State. They look solid against Oklahoma, and I think part of it is because it's your first game. Arch Manning's first start against the number one scoring defense, number one total yardage defense in the country. And then Florida on the road is not an easy place to play. Florida had just gotten there. Florida had a receiver out until that game, so they hadn't seen him play. Then he had a big game. And so I think that loss was more of a fluke. And then as of recent, Arch has played a little bit better. They've also been throwing some screens to get him going like that. They threw a screen to Ryan Wingo, which is their receiver that he probably runs in the 4.3s. He took that thing 75 yards to the house, first play against Vanderbilt. But, yeah, I think Texas obviously went in there in, but they don't have an easy schedule. They literally have to play Georgia and A&M still. I have a feeling they probably split those games. I don't think Georgia is very good, and I say that with some respect towards them, because it is impressive to win close games consistently. It does matter. It is the sign of a good team. But once they play teams that are on their level, I don't think they're going to win close. I just don't think it's as good of a Georgia team as we've seen recently. So I think Texas could win that game, but it is at Athens. And then A&M has been really good this year. That's going to be super difficult to win, although it is at Texas. So they have a couple of opportunities left to prove that they're 100% in. And I definitely think they could do it. I think they're a top three or four most talented team in the whole country.
Arch, the last two games, back-to-back 300-yard plus passing performances in the last four games in their winning streak, 7 touchdowns to just 1 interception through the air. I got to ask this, though, is, Texas A&M being the highest-ranked SEC team, are they, I don't want to say definitively, but are they the best team? Can you confidently say they are the best team in this conference, or would you give that nod to Alabama?
I tend to lean A&M, actually. I feel like a lot of people lean Alabama. I think that Alabama cannot run the ball very well, and I think that could be a big problem once they start to face better pass rushes and teams that will be able to stop them through the air, because they're just not running the ball well, and I don't think their defense is great. I think that was the most overrated unit in the country heading into the season. It was, Alabama was said to have, by some, maybe the best defense in college football heading into this season. And I thought they were overrating some of those guys, and it kind of came to fruition. So while Alabama is the most explosive team on off, they have the most explosive passing game. They are Alabama. They have some things going for them. I think A&M, they just are more balanced. They've had some bad defensive games, but I don't think their defense is bad. I just think they've had some fluky defensive games, kind of like Texas did against Mississippi State. I think they're pretty fast on that side of the ball. And Marcel Reed's playing at a high level. So is Ty Simpson. But I just think that the running game that he adds to it, their receivers are really good as well. Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. I would lean A&M, but I think they're like back-to-back in terms of the best teams in college football. I think they're right next to each other.
Craver, Concepcion both averaging over 15 yards a catch. Craver averaging nearly 18 yards a catch on 40 catches this season. They're averaging 200 yards rushing a game. Marcel Reed at nearly 2,000 yards passing in 8 games, 17 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I would say this on the Alabama front. When they lost that first game of the season to Florida State, there was something about me. I think I told you this on the phone. I was like, I actually don't think that Ty Simpson, played that bad. No. And I think he's actually a pretty good quarterback. I think there's a lot of potential there. And I said it before, I was like, I would take Ty Simpson over Gunnar Stockton.
Yeah.
And Ty Simpson and the Tide went into Athens and beat down Georgia. And they're able to get a victory. And obviously they're just one spot ahead of Georgia. And then, obviously you look at Gunnar Stockton, look at this whole team. Georgia's susceptible. They've got some places where, think about it last week against Florida. Florida's terrible this year. No. Obviously, they fired Billy Napier, DJ Lagway. It's been just a disappointment for this entire team and program this year. And when you play a rivalry game, we know this. I think all teams that play in huge rivalry games know that anything can happen. Throw out all the stats, throw out all the other added factors and everything else. When you're walking into a rivalry game, anything goes in those type of matchups. But when you're Georgia and you're severely better than the other team and you put yourself in a terrible spot like you did even in last year's game and other stuff like that, there's been really bad spots where Georgia's played against Florida, but just those lulls that Georgia can find themselves in. It obviously raises level of concern. The SEC is, I would say the SEC reminds me most of the NFL because there's ridiculous parity. Anything can happen, like in any given Sunday metric is any given Saturday. You don't see it as much in the Big Ten because Ohio State's just so far ahead of the pack. Indiana, so far ahead of the pack. Oregon is not that far away from those teams, but they're so far ahead of the rest of the pack and everything else. I know the Big Ten's got a lot of teams that are ranked, but you can just tell the difference between certain teams compared to your mid-level teams or even your higher level teams. But the SEC is just condensed together where you just have no idea what the hell's going to happen with this conference. No, you don't know. Yeah. You could roll a dice and twice and you have a matchup in the SEC championship. You're like, that would be a pretty good game.
Yeah.
What are we thinking with the SEC? Because we're looking at it right now. A&M leads the conference. It's obviously as the rankings. Well, A&M, Bama, Georgia, Mississippi, Ole Miss. A&M and Bama would be in the SEC championship if things started today. But again, Texas only has one loss, so 5 teams are in the running for it. Texas, tough schedule down the stretch, like you mentioned, with A&M, and they've got Georgia in a couple of weeks. Ole Miss has a pretty cupcake schedule the rest of the way against Florida, and then they have obviously their rivalry game against Mississippi State, so don't sleep on that. Then Georgia's got Texas, Mississippi State, so they've got 2 more of their own. And then Alabama's got LSU. They've got a big-time one against Oklahoma the following Saturday, and then you've got the end of the year against Auburn on the road. Don't count that one out as well. Who's making the SEC championship game, Brady, if you had to prognosticate this one out? Because this is a fascinating conference, as it always is.
It is. It's super weird. It's especially in a year like this. Like, I don't think there's necessarily a great team, but there's a collection of good teams in this conference this year, which is what's making it so – there's so much parity.
Yeah.
Like you said, I have – this prediction is going to be tough for sure. I'm going to put Alabama in there. I just think they're rolling right now. I think I'm going to do the Alabama A&M matchup. I do think that's what it's going to end up being. I do think Texas is going to beat Texas A&M, but Texas is going to lose to Georgia. So I think that would put A&M in the playoff or in the SEC championship, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I just think that matchup finds a way of happening, and I think it'll be a really good game when it does. Yeah. I just think it would be – I don't know what that spread would be. It would be so – I think Bama would be like a 1.5 favorite or something. And that 1.5 obviously comes from them being Bama, which means they're about even in Vegas' eyes.
That would be a fun matchup to see. I'm excited to see how these things play out. And obviously every single week is so important. And it's – those stakes are high, especially with how they kind of changed that playoff format up a little bit. Obviously not being – top 4 seeds are obviously all the conference championship winners. But again, it's fun to take a look at. But let's go to the Big Ten real quick. All right. So we've got looking at all the one-loss teams, there's 4 of them in conference, okay? So you got USC, Iowa, Oregon, and Michigan going from 6 up to 3. But then there's 2 teams that are undefeated right now, and those are the top 2 teams in the country, Ohio State and Indiana. How wide or narrow of a gap is it between Ohio State and Indiana?
I think it's pretty narrow. It's hard to. I think that Oregon game Indiana played proved it, because I personally think Oregon's the 3rd best team in the country. I do think that they could win the Natty, and Indiana to go in there and win that game is huge. Not easy to do in Autzen and with all the talent Oregon had. So, and I'm seeing that Indiana would only be a 3.5-point underdog in Indy right now against Ohio State. And obviously you're not used to seeing that with your 2 eyes, Indiana only being a 3.5-point underdog. But the fact that they have, Fernando Mendoza, who is 2nd for the Heisman right now, and odds, they have a good running game. They have multiple receivers that can beat you. They have an elite defense. They're just really, really good. I mean, they're the real deal. And it's not just like, oh, they play hard. Like, no, like they have one of the best, like they're one of the most talented teams in the country. Even though like these guys weren't high recruits in high school necessarily, all of them, they obviously have outperformed their ranking, and they're going to be like, NFL draft picks like Mikael Kamara, Elijah Surratt, who Matt had a nickname for that I won't say on this show, but it was one of the I'll just say it was Gus Johnson in Gus Johnson's voice when he says, his Maserati Marv or JK all day.
Oh boy,
makes it rhyme. Then all that stuff. But at the same time, if anyone is going to expose Indiana, and I don't know if there's anything to expose, there might not be, it would be Ohio State, because, there's just guys that there's a couple guys we have this year that no matter what could beat you, regardless of the coverage, regardless of the game plan. The guys we have on the outside with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, they're one of the best receiver duos I've seen in general. Carnell Tate's been much better than I thought he would be. I mean, I thought he was a really good player coming into the year, but he's better than I thought, without question.
Mm-hmm.
Julian saying, I don't know if I've seen him throw an inaccurate pass when somebody, like all year, when somebody has a chance to make a catch. I don't think I've seen him miss. It's actually been insane. And then on defense, it's just loaded. You got Arvell Reese. There's a chance he's the number 1 pick still if they see him as an edge. And the first team doesn't really need a quarterback much. Caleb Downs, everyone knows, best safety in America. Caden McDonald, arguably been the best D tackle in America this year.
Yep.
IGB, Jermaine. I mean, these guys are just really good players. And so if Ohio State did win by double digits, it's possible. But to answer your question, I do think the gap is narrow because Indiana also has talent, and they just destroy every single team they play. And so it just kind of like, I just think they're a really good team. I think they're the number 2 team in the country.
Name me Ohio State's biggest strength, and name me Ohio State's weakness.
I would say Ohio State's biggest strength
There's many.
What up?
There's many. There's many strengths, but if you got to pick one.
I think it's that linebacker unit. I think and an ability to I guess that kind of front 7 we'll say, but linebacker unit in particular, those 2 are like the consensus first 2 linebackers in the draft right now. Like Arvell Reese, 100% going to be the first linebacker drafted. You can clip, everyone at this point. And then Sonny Styles, likely going to be the second linebacker drafted. So it's just like you have, and they're both freaks. Like they're not they're fundamentally sound, but it's not like, oh, these guys just like, oh, they read their gas, blah, blah, blah. No, they're 6'4", 240 pounds, both of them.
Nuts.
And Arvell, the offense will get a play that they want. Like they'll get the look they want for a slip screen or something. And Arvell will just come in 100 miles an hour and just take the running back's head off immediately because he's so quick to react. And then Sonny, obviously 3-year starter, veteran. Those 2 are just unbelievable and freaks. I just think it's huge. And I could have said receivers. I didn't want to give a basic answer because I do also believe that we have the 2 best receivers in the country this year. So it's like one of those things where you're like, it's hard to, but yeah, I mean, the linebacker unit is insane. I don't really see anybody taking advantage of. I don't see anybody like being able to truly take advantage of those two this whole year. And then biggest weakness, I would probably say the offensive line is the biggest weakness. And I don't think it's either the O-line or the running back room. And we have Bo Jackson, who I think is a really good running back, but he's also a freshman. Like, it's hard. You don't know if you can trust him in huge moments necessarily yet. Maybe you can. I'm just saying a hypothetical.
Yeah.
And then those, like, C.J. Donaldson. Oh, my God. He sucks. I'm sorry. I just don't think he's good. Like, he's just not very good. Our two best running backs are freshmen, Isaiah West and Bo Jackson, which is great for the future. The O-line's gotten a little banged up. You know, we might have a couple guys out this week. And I do think it's a good unit. So it's like weird, but they have probably been our biggest weakness just because there's times where in the run blocking game they've gotten beat a couple times, but I don't think it's a big concern, but I would definitely say that's our biggest weakness.
Is Cardell Tate and Jeremiah Smith the best receiver duo you ever seen at Ohio State in a single season? That's putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're looking at the amount of receiver duos that have come through here and even trios at that rate.
Yeah.
Where you're looking at, I don't even want to go down the list because there are so many of them and you know them a lot better than me with the years running together. So put the thinking cap on because I'll just put these numbers out there for you. Jeremiah Smith, 55 catches for 725 yards and 9 touchdowns this year. Cardell Tate, 39 catches for 711 yards and 7 touchdowns this year. The next closest person behind those two in receiving yards is Max Clare, 501 yards behind.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say that they're the best receiver duo I've ever seen at Ohio State. And it's crazy because I never thought I would say this coming into the year. That wasn't something I was expecting. But I now view – going into the season, I personally – there were people that viewed Cardell Tate as a first-round pick. I actually didn't. I viewed him as maybe a second-rounder for sure, like a really solid, consistent receiver that you're going to take in the second round. I knew he was going to start on Sundays. Really good player, obviously, and super happy that Oregon did all the money they tried to pay him this offseason didn't work out, and he stayed. I didn't realize how distraught I would have been if we lost him, though, because I'm not like not only am I thinking like, okay, I can see late first round, easy top 10 pick, in my opinion, easy. I think he's just the route running, the size. I mean, this dude's 6'3", has long arms. He never uses his body to catch the ball. He's a smart route runner. He's crazy hands, the jump ball ability. He's got the speed. Like he has an argument against any Ohio State receiver other than I don't think he has an argument against Jeremiah Smith, Jackson Smith and Jigba, or Marvin in terms of like Ohio State play only. I think he's like right there with like a little bit behind Jason and Marv. I think him and Garrett are in the same tier, which is saying something because I view Garrett as a very like obviously easy top 10 pick. Like obviously he was the 10th overall pick, but like that's just kind of how the order goes sometimes.
Yeah.
JSN went 20th, but he was the first receiver taken, and that was only because for some reason nobody started picking receivers until then, and the injury before the season he would be a mock top 5. I think Carnell is even better than like maybe slightly better than Olave and Wilson and Emeka and all of them, and I would put him right there in that middle tier of these elite receivers, and that becomes a top 10 pick. And when you're talking about the fact that Jeremiah Smith is the best of all of them, and you put it together, I think that makes them the best receiver duo.
An embarrassment of riches that have cashed out at the bank. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. But it'll be big for Ohio State. They play Purdue on Saturday, November 8th, 1 o'clock. A 1 o'clock kick, actually interesting on Big Ten Network. They're favored by 29.5. It opened up as 26.5. Over unders 48.5. So Ohio State. I mean, it's interesting because whenever they go to Purdue, it's always a weird one in some regard. I'm not saying because the last time I went to Purdue in 2023, Ohio State like took care of business. They handled them. But
were you at my house for that game?
I was not. I was actually calling. I was calling a college football game that day. But it was just odd. Every time they go to Purdue, it's like things get weird. Might not even be the score. It's just something unusual happens.
It's not normal.
It's not. That's Ben Connors. Again, he works at Purdue. But this West Lafayette, not normal at all.
No, it's not. And like you said, like even in 2023 when we blew him out, Kyle McCord was backpedaling every time he got the ball. It made no sense.
You did text me that at halftime. I was like, hold on, what's happening?
It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. He was just spazzing out, like backpedaling and throwing off his back foot, and Marv would have to bail him out every single time. It was terrible. And then he finally stepped into a throw on a seam to Carnell Tate. Carnell Tate had like a 50-yard gain that game like 2 years ago. Obviously, we were just talking about him, but like it was weird. It was weird. But some of these guys on this team right now played great games there. That like Brandon Ennis had a 60-yard touchdown, his first touchdown of his career. Carnell had a pretty good game. And then Caden McDonald, it was actually his first game getting reps as a true freshman. And I remember he had a good game. And so people were asking Jim Knowles about how he was a disruptive force in the interviews the following week. So we have guys that played there and have seen the weirdness. And I mean, we all know what happened 2 times ago at Purdue. It doesn't get any weirder than that. But like you said, it's weird. Purdue's a weird place.
Yeah, it does get odd up there in Northwest Indiana, but hopefully Ohio State can take care of business. Excuse me. But the other noon game, the noon game actually. I keep forgetting Ohio State's at 1 o'clock. I'm so used to saying noon, but noon game, big noon kickoff. Indiana goes to Happy Valley, take on Penn State. How long do you give Penn State until Indiana blows this one out?
Man. I would say they're going to blow it open kind of in the third quarter like we did.
Yeah.
I do think it'll be fairly close in the first half just because people kind of forget Penn State does have a very talented roster, as weird as it sounds. As weird as it sounds, they still have – they're going to be in like the top 7 of teams with the most draft picks this year, like guaranteed, which is hilarious to think about.
Yeah.
But I just think at some point – Indiana's going to like take a lead and Penn State's will is going to break. And I think Indiana will just end up in a spot where they're super comfortable winning in the third quarter.
Yeah. And there's a real chance that Penn State finishes the season out 4-8.
Yeah.
There's a real chance that they finish 4-8 this year. They lose, and it'll be their 6th loss of the season. They'll be 3-6, something that Penn State fans couldn't even fathom. That they would be 3-6 this season, but again,
it actually doesn't make any sense. It actually makes me so like uncomfortable thinking about it because they'd never do this.
No, not at all. You could tell sometimes like, okay, there's one just weird year, but and that might be Penn State's weird year. But at the same time, you're like considering all of the national championship hype and everything else. Like some of those seasons where a team has a weird year, you're like, they're not having that same hype, or that hype dies down super quick, But they literally were like the number 2 team in the country, and then they lose at home, and then everything just went to shit.
Yeah.
You've never seen that before from a team. It's insane to think about. You would think that it'll be the other way around. You've seen it the other way around where Indiana's unranked and Penn State is undefeated. And they have the flop rankings and records and everything else. But it's interesting how college football works. And that's why you got the BYU and Texas Tech game, a new one on ABC, 7 versus 8. That's where College Game Day is going to be at this Saturday. The Big 12, that's a wild and wacky conference. It's wide open. We don't know who's going to take it. Personally, it would be nice as a University of Cincinnati student if BYU were to win this game, because Cincinnati plays BYU 2 weeks from now in Clifton, and Cincinnati pretty much would control their destiny to make it to the Big 12 championship if BYU were to beat Texas Tech and Cincinnati wins out and beats BYU. So that's going to be an interesting game. What are we thinking about BYU and Texas Tech?
I think both are solid teams for sure. I think, I didn't expect going into the season that this would be a 7-8 matchup at this point in the year, but here we are. I think the Big 12 this year is better than the ACC. And last year I probably would have leaned the ACC over the Big 12, so I think they've improved as a conference. And I think Texas Tech has some really actually good players. Like, they're not just like one of those teams that kind of comes on and like they've got David Bailey on the edge. They have another edge rusher too. They have a couple edge rushers that are going high in the draft. Their quarterbacks have both played solid this year. I think Texas Tech's a good team. And then BYU wise, I also think they're a pretty good team. I haven't gotten to watch them a ton, but I tuned into a couple of their games. I believe I watched a little bit of their game against Utah earlier this year, and they looked good.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, obviously, I don't necessarily think they're the 7th and 8th best teams in the country, but they've earned this ranking, and it's a hard game to pick based off what I've seen. I feel like Texas Tech owns the slight talent edge, but BYU has outperformed their expectations by so much, and that maybe some of these guys are getting overlooked. I know their quarterback, Bear Bockermeyer, he wears a weird number.
He wears 47.
47. I was thinking it was 4. It was in the 4. I knew it was in the 40s. But,
so odd.
Yeah, but it's a good matchup.
Yeah, excited to see how that one plays out. Then you got 2 3:30 games, and that's where we'll end our show out with these 2 3:30 games. A&M goes to Missouri. A&M's favored by only 6.5. That's 6.5 on the road or something, but again, 6.5 on ABC. What are we thinking though? I mean, again, A&M, they've been rolling. They're undefeated, but Missouri, for some reason, they just hang around a little bit, and it's a home game. It's A&M's going into an environment that, Missouri definitely the student body definitely wants to storm the field after this game. So Missouri's going to try to give them every reason to do so and get a victory. What are we thinking with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it could, like you said, I think it could be closer than people think. It sucks that Bo Pribula won't be playing, but I do think that Missouri has talent. They have a good coach. They have some of their players have seen success over their college careers. So I think that, with the home crowd, all that, it could be interesting. Although I still think it could be one of those games where Texas A&M kind of in the third quarter just kind of breaks their will. It'll be maybe a 3rd and long Marcel Reed scramble for the first down that just kind of like Missouri's players slowly start to just give up just a little bit. And then at that point, I think you'll probably see Texas A&M win this game somewhat comfortably. And be fairly easy in the fourth quarter, but still exciting. I mean, I'm excited to watch a little bit of this game, and I'm hoping for a good game.
Now, the other front for the Big Ten, this is a big one in the conference. You got Oregon and Iowa. Oregon goes to Iowa, and uncomfortable place to play football in.
Very, very uncomfortable. I mean, this place is somewhere where you don't know what's going to happen. It's similar to Purdue in a sense.
Yeah. More cornfields, but
more cornfields. It's a tough atmosphere, and I know Iowa's going to bring it, and very well could see Oregon losing this game. I think Iowa's a good team too. They've been really good recently. I mean, they shut out Wisconsin. They almost beat Indiana, which teams don't do that. Indiana usually somehow wins by 60 every. It makes no sense. Like,
it's insane.
You just look at Indiana's score and they're beating like a decent team by 58 points, and it's just like, what?
I mean, they took them down to Indiana had to score with 90 seconds left in the game. So
yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, and Iowa had a lead in the fourth quarter for a minute.
Iowa had a lead in the fourth quarter, and it's hard to predict.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Iowa won their first home game of the year. Their only home loss of the year was to Indiana, which they were leading by 3 in the fourth quarter. So
yeah,
and anything can happen when it comes to this one. It just looks like the stadium itself just looks weird. Again, obviously you have the tradition of the Children's Hospital up above, which is one of the best traditions in college football. But yeah. I mean, wow, they're like the amount of pressure. It just feels like that stadium just right on top of the field, like really right on top of the sideline and everything else. I mean, Dante Moore's got his work cut out for him on Saturday. This is going to tell me a lot about who he is as a player and a quarterback.
Yeah, I think it will too. And for me, like, I still have Dante Moore. I think he's the number one QB in this next draft for me still, over Mendoza and Ty Simpson and all them, just because I do think his arm is special. I think he can throw with a lot of zip, different arm angles. And when you combine the traits, so to speak, that everyone loves with actually being able to throw the ball accurately and play play QB, throw the ball in structure, read the defense, he can do all those things. That's when you give a guy the edge because of those specific traits, not when they just happen to have him like Anthony Richardson. Oh, who could have expected him to suck? Anybody that it was just so obvious. So
it was quite obvious.
It was, and then we talked about this on the show multiple times.
Matt talked about it on the show specifically.
He did. Matt did talk about it on the show.
He was right on.
He was right. Matt, you were right.
With the Colts, again, I don't know. Quarterbacks have resurgences, but man,
yeah.
If you gotta be accurate. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all we gotta say as a quarterback. You gotta be accurate.
You have to be.
Other than that, what are you? So
no,
I don't know. But that'll do it for our show here. It was fun to talk college football again, and we'll be back at it consistently as the weeks go on. But that being said, that's Brady King. I'm Chase Johnson. We'll see you guys next time on the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast.